to Zoom room, Elaine and Lynn. Great expression session there. So let's jump into today's teaching. Have a look at our email. Daily quote, bit of teaching, and that'll then take us into our lesson for today, and we're going to try and do some text as well, which is on time and eternity. Okay, so I'll just share my screen with you. All right, so if you can read that, either one of you.
Don't play the victim. Yeah. Don't play the victim to the circumstances you created. That's an appropriate one.
You see these kids, looking angry. On the back there. So the buck stops with us. So it's obscure. I must actually fix that. But essentially, it stops here. So it really highlights the core delusion of anyone that believes they're a victim of the world. They believe that the circumstances they created are causing them to suffer, and have chosen to forget the truth that they themselves created these circumstances, albeit on a subconscious level. So it doesn't seem like it's our mind's creation. The illusion is that it's all happening to us. There's other people and things that are doing it to you. But actually what we're doing is playing the victim of external circumstances projected by our own minds. And that is the lowest self-concept that you can have, or height of self-deception, because it denies your true identity as omnipotent and omniscient love. So let's just have a look once again at our diagram, this descent into hell, because this illustrates it quite well. So we see that at the very bottom of the ladder of the ego's thought system of separation is the victim identity that seems to put you in hell, a helpless innovator little life where you feel limited, lacking, lonely, suffering, inevitable death. And the ego wants you to buy into that and believe that story and believe that this is all being done to you by other people and this cruel external world is some kind of punishment. And that is, inevitably where the ego's thought system taken to its extreme leads you, this very limited and hellish self-concept, which denies the truth of pure formless awareness of perfect love, of who you are. And instead, you have this very limited and inevitably suffering self-concept that's replaced it. And that becomes then the core identity, or FLOP, we talked about earlier in the course. Fundamental life operating program is that I am a victim and I am not worthy of this awareness, of this love. And so the separation is maintained in your mind. So that's the ego's whole construct, that's its story. But today's quote and the workbook lesson, which is very similar, I'm not the victim of the world I see. So it's a double call by the Holy Spirit, all the moments of perfect love, to wake up to your true power as a son of God or extension of perfect love. This is exactly why you need to get really clear about your higher purpose. It's the most effective antidote to the victim identity of your ego or separate self. So when you're following your higher purpose, you're on your hero's journey of awakening. That's why it's the most effective antidote. Because you're committed into awakening from that victim identity of your ego or separate self. And the process of that awakening is the hero's journey, is the spiritual path. So you're in these terms, you're going from the very limited, lacking separate self, and you're climbing the ladder back up. You've got to overcome all of these false beliefs, the accusation and blame and seeming attack of the ego, the fear of punishment, all the separate forms that convince you that you are separate as well, the guilt and the sin that underpin the individual identity of the ego, and ultimately the idea of separation entirely just goes because you realize it's all false. So the entire thing collapses, and then what's left is the truth, pure formless awareness of perfect love. So your higher purpose takes you on this journey up the ladder, and it often looks like you're doing something in the world, whatever that is, because on that journey of doing whatever it is, you get the lessons that you need to learn to climb the ladder. You know, so every time you get a block showing up, that's another stepping stone up the ladder, another step up the ladder. Does that make sense? And if you
Yes,
see it
it
that
does.
way, then you see that, you know, it's essential. Those blocks that come up and the challenges, the problems, the difficulties that we inevitably face are necessary to climb the ladder. Each one is another step on the ladder, which you have to then overcome. So you literally through contacting it, think of how it works when you're climbing a ladder or climbing some steps. Your foot has to go there, and then you use that to push yourself higher, don't you? To propel yourself upwards.
Yeah.
Same thing. You use the obstacle correctly perceived to propel yourself on and upwards in the journey. And when you let go, the way that you do that is by letting go of all of your negative thoughts and emotions that want to suck you down and keep you stuck at that stage. The letting go is like the springboard that helps you to continuously elevate yourself through the challenges. Letting go takes you to a higher level, higher and higher, until eventually you're back in the highest state possible, pure formless awareness of perfect love, and the entire idea of separation is just vanished. But while we're here, our job is to just climb the ladder, keep climbing the ladder, taking whatever life gives us as, you know, feedback that we need. Okay, so there's a bonus discussion on higher purpose here, which I thought might be interesting. It was actually a one-on-one session I did, but the guy was quite happy for me to share it. We talked to, he was actually an interesting chap. He was a Paralympic archer, so competed at the Olympics. So lost his leg and then, you know, has found this in archery, which is quite a Zen, archery is a Zen art. You know, it's the focus, it's the control, it's the discipline, it's being fully present in the moment. It's really more a mental. It's one of those sports that's, I mean, everything is a mind game, but there's no, you know, no kind of stamina or, you know, it's not so much about that. It's just about that pure present awareness. Maybe he does a bit of weight training, I don't know, but you know, there's nothing except the mind and the you know, this awareness to guide you, and the arrow is symbolic of that awareness. If the arrow goes skew, then your awareness was off. You weren't quite, you know, centered and focused in the moment. And so we talked about the ideas of flow, focus and flow, how you get into the flow, how you let go of the fear. It's not about the outcome. So his story is quite interesting because he did go to the last Olympics, and he said he underperformed because the occasion got to him. He was nervous about the outcome because it's the Olympics. But actually, nothing's really changed. He's still doing the same thing he's done thousands of times in practice and training. But now, because it's the Olympics, the expectation then knocks you off center and then affects the performance. So then, the arrow doesn't go as straight as it could because he was out of alignment in his awareness, which, then is the lesson. Like, okay, next time he does it, he'll probably be able to center himself more. And the key thing is that, as in anything in life is to be able to let go of the expectation and the fear and just be fully present. When that happens in sport, then you'd say the person is in the zone. And then you see the performance goes accordingly. And as soon as, if you ever, watch sport, particularly individual sports, it's very noticeable. So if you watch like tennis, for example, next time you watch tennis at Wimbledon, it's coming up in a few months. Just spend an hour watching the tennis and just watch for the pattern of the ego. And you'll see how the ebb and the flow of the match is determined by the player's mental and emotional state.
Yeah, you can see that really clearly sometimes.
In individual sports, it's very easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in team sports as well, but because then it's a collective. But in individuals, it's so obvious because it's like you can see someone tightens up and they start thinking
The
about
stress.
yeah, and then immediately you see, oh, something's just changed and they're not quite as loose and as flowing as they were. And then often their opponent starts to go, hey, I'm hitting my zone now, and I'm in flow, and then the game changes. Just that mental shift starts changing the performance and then the outcome. And it happens in a moment. Just you can see if someone is starting to go out of alignment or someone is really in the zone, and you can see it in their demeanor and their body language. When someone's really in the zone, they're not thinking. It's just happening. And they're just doing it. They're not overthinking it. But then, often what happens, the ego comes in and like, let's say they get close to winning. Now they're serving for the set or the match even. And then suddenly you can see, oh, I could win this. So the expectation comes in and then they go out of the zone. And it happens even to the best. I've seen it with the likes of Roger Federer and stuff. It's like, oh, you can just see tighten up because it's only got 3 points to go, and you have to go out of that. So it's fascinating to watch because you see these principles in action and how they apply in sport, and it's kind of real time. As someone shifts in almost instantly, they will hit a shot and it won't be, if they're out of alignment, it's not going to be as good as it was if they were in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason why we enjoy watching these guys is because they are showing us what is possible if you go into your higher self. Like how do you play at that level in front of a crowd of tens of thousands present and then millions watching? How do you perform like at that level without getting freaked out and fearful?
And then you also see them getting freaked out.
They can do, yeah. But the best players are the ones who have the greatest level of emotional control. They don't freak out.
Mency, he's a bit like that, isn't he? Mency, his name, the footballer.
Messi.
Messi,
Yeah.
Yes, Messi. He's a bit like that, isn't he?
You can see, like it's there. If you watch, did you watch the World Cup final when Argentina won 2 years ago?
No.
No. So just fascinating to watch because Argentina were winning easily, and then the French came back in the last 10 minutes. They scored 2 goals, and then it went to extra time. And they have a little break between the extra time, and they focused in on Messi to see what his reaction was, and I thought it was fascinating because he was smiling. He wasn't like, oh my God, we could have won it. And he's just like, okay, game on, You could see he was enjoying it. It's like, okay, game on, He's
So
welcoming the challenge. It's like, okay, it would have been too easy if they just won 2-0 and the French weren't even in the game. Okay, this is what I came for. This is what I showed up for. This is, the process. It's like, and he was enjoying it. You could see. Whereas if you've been attached to the outcome, it could have been, oh my God, we were 10 minutes from winning, and now we've messed it up, and it's all lost. And then that psychology is likely to lose you the match. But he was like, okay, game on. I'm up for this. Let's do this. Bring on the challenge. And they ended up winning. Because they stayed in the zone. They didn't allow that, we had it and then we lost it to affect them. Yeah, so sport is fascinating to watch from that point of view. So watch Wimbledon or whatever as a spiritual practice, because you can see these when you have the eyes to see, you can see the spirit and the ego. It's the duality between them that determines the outcome of the match, almost always, unless someone is so obviously better. If they're on a just way better, then yeah, generally they'll win anyway, even if they don't perform that well. But if it's close, then it's like, well, what's going to determine it is whether someone's in the ego or the spirit, and how consistently they can stay in that through the course of the match. Okay, so that's interesting. Listen to that. Your higher purpose is to follow the path that helps you to overcome these weaknesses and heal your pain by letting it go in the quickest way possible for you. So we talked about in this session, as a result of your higher purpose, our higher purpose in life is often inspired by our most traumatic or difficult experiences. So this is what we've also got to understand. It's not always going to be easy. Some of the most difficult experiences are exactly where you find your purpose. A good example of this principle in action is how Alcoholics Anonymous was founded. So if you know the story, forgive me, but I'm going to just share it again. In 1935, there was this guy called Bill Wilson. He was a recovering alcoholic. He was in Wall Street, financial world. And he was at a hotel and they'd had some proxy fight between shareholders and they'd lost. And so he was tempted to go, okay, what the hell, just go have a drink. But he knew, his higher awareness was like, if you go and you have one drink, then that's it. You're gonna get drunk, and then you've fallen off the wagon. And so he was like, okay, I need to do something to overcome this temptation. So I need another alcoholic to overcome my own temptation. So he went to the local hospital instead, and he said, is there anyone who's in for drinking? Because this was common. Like, they didn't know how to treat it, so people would just binge drink and then they'd be admitted. And so there was this guy called Bob Smith who was a surgeon, but he'd been binge drinking, and so he said, well, can I talk to him? And he spent time talking to him about his theory that alcoholism was actually a disease rather than a sin. The church had always said, well, you're sinful and you're guilty and you're going to be punished by God, you're weak-willed. And his theory was that actually it's a disease, and that's been confirmed by medical science, that they're actually missing some enzyme or something that allows them to stop. It's like that just isn't there, so they just drink and they just want to drink more, instead of there being okay, hang on, I've had enough now after one or two. So to help Bob to make the same decision to sober up. So he was helping himself by helping another. He avoided going back into his alcoholic pattern by sharing the love with someone else. And as a result of that holy encounter, they founded Alcoholics Anonymous, which has helped millions of alcoholics worldwide to overcome their addiction. So, quite a profound story, really. And in fact, helping other alcoholics is one of the steps in the AA's 12-step program. So they've incorporated in to the whole process and said, you must then help others. And so a lot of them then become counselors in AA, because it keeps them on the wagon, because they understand, exactly what the temptation is. And they won't allow anyone else to counsel, because no one else can really understand an alcoholic except an alcoholic. I could teach the principles to an alcoholic, but they're going to go, well, you don't understand because you've never been an alcoholic. And I'd have to say, yeah, I don't really understand why you want to drink to excess, because I've never had that impulse. So you have to have walked the path and overcome it in order to be a good teacher in that context. As Yesha teaches, an introduction to manual for teachers. So one of you read that. The purpose of the course. Learn if you can read that.
The purpose of the course might be said to provide you with a means of choosing what you want to teach on the basis of what you want to learn.
Quite profound.
Mm.
What do you want to teach? Because what do you want to learn? You teach what you want to learn. And you teaching all the time.
Lots of people, don't they? Yeah.
We're all teaching all the time.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not. You're teaching through your words, your actions, your behavior. You're teaching a thought system. That's why he calls us all teachers of God. Whether you do that formally, okay, you're going to run sessions like this, or it's just completely informal in your life. You teach by example in your interactions with other people. You teach through your photographs. You teach through, all kinds of mechanisms.
Yeah.
So what do you want to teach? Because what do you
Love.
want to learn?
Yeah.
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 So your higher purpose becomes, how do I teach love in my unique way?
Yeah.
That
And maintain it.
Me, that is in accordance with my interests, my talents, my abilities, and everyone has unique talents and abilities that can be used by the Holy Spirit. So your higher purpose becomes, how do I teach love in my unique way? And so that's your special function. It's the Holy Spirit's reinterpretation of the specialness the ego made, but now using it for, the only real purpose that there is, which is for you to learn and teach love.
Yeah.
So the AA program is just another form of the universal curriculum that is the hero's journey back to God, or the pure formless awareness of perfect love. So, whether you use the AA program or use the Course in Miracles or use another spiritual path, it's really the same. And that's why AA works, because it's based on spiritual principles, based on these same principles, just set out differently and customized for that particular addiction. That a person who has that particular addiction to alcohol, the program is designed for that specifically. But generally, the AA 12-step principles are very much in alignment with the Course.
Yeah.
So if you want to read the development of trust, that might be helpful. This is the Course's version of the hero's journey. We have read it before. So there's 6 stages, and just briefly to reflect on it, the first 3 stages are all about undoing. It's undoing, the current your current way of thinking, and often your life must change. So the plan will sometimes call for changes in what seem to be external circumstances. These changes are always helpful. When the teacher of God has learned that much, he goes on to the second stage. But it takes a lot of learning to understand that all the changes are helpful.
Yeah.
When things are going pear-shaped, you've got to remind it, but it's helpful. This is helping me in my journey of awakening. And then you have to sort it all out and decide what do you value and what do you not value. And so, these first 3 stages are about letting go, sorting out, and then relinquishing the old so that you can make way for the new.
And I'm literally doing that with my stuff and working out how to pack,
Yeah.
going mobile. I've really got to work out
Mm.
what is totally essential and the rest
Mm.
live without, because I
Yeah.
won't be able to carry it all.
Yeah. So travel light,
Yeah.
minimalism
Mm.
is an expression of letting go, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have to
Another
learn
form
to,
of it. Yeah.
yeah.
Another big bit
When
of it,
you
really.
minimize your stuff, all of the baggage that you're carrying, then you're clear. You also have to do that on a mental and emotional level.
Yeah.
So,
Doing
travel
a lot
light.
of the physical. Yeah.
Hmm. Why all that stuff? Do you really need it all? Probably most of it you don't.
Loads of it's
So
gone.
you can
Yeah.
get rid of 90% of it. You have the essentials, you travel light, and when you declutter, you free your mind.
Yes.
So that's part of in the process of your awakening.
Yeah, that's the other aspect of what's helped me get back into, yeah, my calm state as well.
Hmm. Yeah. It's all part of the process.
And
And
triggers along the way.
yeah, yeah. And a letting go of that old self, that's attached to form and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a guy, I'll see if I can find it. Or just Google it on YouTube. They talk about minimalism. This guy, I think he did it, was it a TED talk? Very, very profound. So he was in his 20s and he was kind of accumulating all the stuff. He had quite a good job and he, just accumulating stuff. And then his mum died. That also resonates here. Mum died and he had to go and clear out her house.
Yeah.
And she said it was just insane. Just the amount of stuff that
Yeah.
she'd accumulated. Her house was just rammed full of stuff. Every drawer, every closet, just stuff, stuff, stuff. He said it took him 3 weeks to sort it out. And he was like, it's just like, what's the point?
It's exactly what's happened to me. Except
Yeah.
I'm the lucky one. I haven't had to sort through my dad's stuff, but I've been listening to my mum, my brother, and my sister talking about
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
vans full of stuff
Yeah.
they've
So it'll
taken to
probably resonate
charity
with you.
shops and bins and
Hmm.
and all sorts. And it's like the
Hmm.
thought of someone have to do that to my stuff was enough to push me to the next level. I was already getting there, I was already
Yeah.
doing stuff, but it's like, right, that's taking me right to the next level of
Yeah.
no one's gonna have to go
Yeah.
through my
Yeah. Just, let it go now. So this guy in his 20s had this kind of spiritual awakening through this process of like, okay, it's just like declutter. What is all this stuff for?
yeah,
And then he went back to his own house and went like, what am I accumulating all this stuff for? What do I need it
yeah,
for? And he said, I got rid of like 90% of my stuff.
yeah,
I didn't need it. And, in that process, you free your mind, don't you? You're freeing your
yeah.
mind from materialism. So it's
That's
it's a
exactly
profoundly
what I'm going
spiritual
through.
process. Yeah.
I'm putting some
But it's
stuff in storage, but it's minimal really. And if I didn't
hmm,
have my photography, my pictures and my frames and all that selling
hmm,
stuff, I could have got storage half the size. It's very,
yeah.
very small.
Hmm,
Yes,
hmm.
happening.
And that's all part of, the journey. Enlightenment,
Yeah,
if you look
good.
in history, these enlightened beings generally travel light. They don't have
Yeah.
loads of stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeshua had, what did he have? He had basically the clothes on his back. He had a staff, he had some clothes, and he just wandered around. He was just teaching. And they traveled light, no fixed abode, and just, like itinerant. Same with the Buddha. Just wandered around the countryside,
Yeah.
and taught the truth. So, I mean, you're in good company.
Yeah. That's what I
That's
was
what
just
you're going to
thinking.
do.
How funny.
Yeah. Yeah. And they chose that life, as part of the awakening.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, they were guided, to go on the road and teach and spread the love. And so being in a fixed home and abode and having that family life was not their path.
Oh, my.
And yeah, so you can embrace that and go, well, that's actually, you know, good. That's freedom. I can be mobile. I can go wherever I'm called to go. You know how many people would love to do that?
That's the
It's like,
exciting bit.
I'm
Yeah.
free. Yeah, I can go anywhere. I'm free. You know, I don't
I,
have any of these ties and obligations, and I can go where the spirit calls me to go.
I
Simple.
said to someone today that I'm going traveling, and they laughed, like really took the mickey and laughed at me. In like they just couldn't comprehend it. But actually, I thought to myself, no, you would love to be free. You'd love to be. You would absolutely that person's especially would love to be free. And yeah,
It's a different,
and
you know, it's a different lifestyle choice and
yeah,
a different thought system. If you attach to actually it's freedom because you don't have any of that stuff tying you down, and you can just, you know, go at any moment. You're not bound and tied down. You know, like in 20 minutes, half an hour, you can leave. You can
yeah,
just go somewhere else.
yeah,
That's the business that I'm in. It's quite liberating. All right. Well, you know, I have a family, obviously, and a son. So there's that bond. But physically, like stuff, like I have very little of it. It's very freeing.
yeah,
So, you know, actually you're in a very good position
yeah. I
that
am.
many people would envy, and you just got to go, well, it's all, you know, it's all happening for my highest good, for my awakening. And I've just got to go through you know, these stages of undoing and then sorting out what's valuable and what's punishment. Okay, I'm going to let go of that old life and all of the values that went with it.
Yeah,
And then, you know, a period of settling down, quiet time. So that might come after this, which will be nice. But you can kind of, doesn't mean you settle in one place, but, you know, mentally, emotionally, just more stable. And then you go into challenge again. Next stage is indeed a period of unsettling. Now I understand that, you know, I didn't really understand at all what was valuable or valueless. So it's like the final letting go of the ego, and then finally the period of achievement, which is enlightenment, where you just totally 100% trusting, guided by the spirit, and the ego has fallen away entirely. So, you know, we're all in a process somewhere. If you're going through the period of relinquishment, of sorting out and relinquishment, it's exactly that's part of the journey.
yeah,
You don't get to the period of achievement without going through the period of relinquishment. It's a journey. So it's all good.
yeah.
Yeah, so you can read that if you want. Might be useful to just have another look at it. And make sure you formulated exercise 8 and 9. Have you written those out? Oh, and Elaine, we've still got to do yours, haven't we? Forgot about that today, but we can do it another
Oh,
day.
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Before
yeah.
Sunday, yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
I haven't
tomorrow.
put them both on one piece of paper yet, but I've got them both.
Yeah, yeah.
Both.
Or we can do it after. I don't have any time limit today, so once the session's finished, we can do it if you want. It's up to you. Um, so yeah, put it down. You know, write it on ideally one piece or two pieces of paper, so you can reference to it, and it becomes, you know, your daily practice to remind yourself, this is my blueprint for my higher self. This is my true self, and this is how it expresses as my higher purpose. And in form, you know, this is, and you know, that starts guiding you and directing you. So doesn't mean you necessarily need to stop what you're currently doing on the level of form, just depends. So everyone's situation is different, just that you need to do it differently, inspired by your higher purpose with the guidance of the Holy Spirit, rather than be motivated by the ego's lower order concerns like fear, the desire for more money, status, and pleasure. I think this will help you if you click on that in the email. I also put it on Telegram. Okay, so that is a 22-minute meditation that's designed to reveal your higher purpose. And I tell the story of how I got miraculous guidance as well at the end. So might inspire you as well. So listen to that. If nothing comes to mind, don't be discouraged, because sometimes inspiration can take a bit of time to reveal itself. So you just let go of the need for an immediate outcome. Say, I'm on my, that's really, the trust, isn't it? It will come when I need it, exactly when I need it, not before, not afterwards. And I'm trusting that process. That's again a letting go of control. So there's a last discussion you can listen to on the integral relationship between the hero's journey and your special function, which we will close out on Sunday, in Sunday's final session. So don't miss that. We'll also be doing exercise 10, which is about helping you to find your higher purpose. It's dealing with any particular challenge you have at the moment, and there's a process you go through. Did you do it last year? I think you probably did. So we'll go through that again. It's a group exercise. You do it in twos. So we need at least 2 people to show up to do it, preferably 4. That would be ideal. If there's an odd number, then I'll just partner with someone. But yeah, if the 2 of you join, then you can partner, and I'll partner with Become.
Yeah.
Okay, so I also thought I'd include this bonus video related to higher purpose. It's a really exceptional 15-minute talk. I don't know if you listened to it. Steve Jobs gave at Stanford University in 2005, which reflected powerful life lessons he learned by following his inner voice to help him find and live his higher purpose. So I'll briefly mention the story. So the first one was when he was at college. He went to one of the most expensive colleges in the US. And he really had because he was adopted. So his biological mother had made it a condition for his adoptive parents to send him to college, as they call it, university, because she hadn't gone and neither of them had gone. So she said, the only way I'm going to allow you to adopt him is that, he needs to go to college. So they were like, okay, well, we agreed on that. And they were, really honest people. So they stuck to that, but they were using all of their life savings, plowing it into this to pay for this college tuition, because it was a very expensive one. And Steve Jobs was like, well, I don't really resonate with this. I don't really know what I'm doing here. So he dropped out after 6 months. And then he just hung around the campus for another 18 months, like sleeping on the friends' floors, and he just dropped into whichever classes he wanted to take. There's no fixed curriculum. It's like, oh, well, I like calligraphy. So he went to calligraphy, and he said that, there's no practical application, seemingly, of learning calligraphy. And this happened to be one of the best schools in the US for calligraphy. But he just enjoyed it. He loved it. He said, I love the artistry of it. So he was obviously he was an interesting character, because he was probably, both left brain and right brain. He had the creative, intuitive side, but also, the practical side, which would, allow you to build things like app computers and so on. So he tells a story. Then he dropped out, took these calligraphy classes. 10 years later, when they were formulating the Apple Mac, they incorporated all of those type fonts into the Mac. As he says, well, because Windows just copied the Mac, you probably none of those type fonts that you see, would be included if he hadn't calligraphy classes all those years ago, seemingly randomly, just because it interested him. So look at all the type fonts. There we go. And it's all all of this. That all came from Steve Jobs' experience way back when he just dropped out, didn't follow the ego's program, and just dropped in what he felt inspired to drop in on. That's why we have, this whole list of type fonts. Otherwise, they may not have been there. There might have been like just one or two standard ones. Probably would have been. So, just interesting to see how someone's journey then manifests in, these ways that then impact, it's impacted the whole world. Everyone's now got access to all these type fonts because of his experience, 50, 60 years ago. In the 70s, I think he was at college. Just by following his intuition and his guidance and going, okay, I'm not going to follow the normal path. It seems like to be a billionaire, you have to drop out of college because Bill Gates did it as well. It's like, don't follow the normal path, because the normal path, you're following the ego's pattern. They did something extraordinary because they were willing to drop out of that and challenge it. So again, the letting go, let go, and then find your flow. You see that principle over and over again. And then he had a second experience when he was 30. He got fired from Apple. Okay, so you've just founded this company. It was a $2 billion turnover organization. It's really successful. He was a hotshot entrepreneur, and then he gets fired from his own company. And of course, he was devastated, and I've what's happened, and I've let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, and I'm a very public failure in Silicon Valley, and he went through all of that. But then he actually realized, well, hang on, no, actually, I'm only 30. I've still got health. I've still got a lot of ideas. I've obviously got a little bit of money. He obviously made money through that whole process. Probably not a little bit, probably quite a lot. So, hey, he said, let me start again. And so, he started the creative process again that he'd begun 10 years before with Apple, and just reinvented himself again, and founded Pixar Studios, which is the world's biggest animation studio now. It was behind Toy Story. It's the first computer-generated animation. And he also founded a company called Next, which developed a lot of the technologies that then came into Apple when Next was acquired over 10 years later by Apple, and came back to Apple, and he brought all that technology and that journey with him. And that was then behind the renaissance of Apple, because Apple at that stage was floundering because they couldn't grow out of the Macintosh era. And he brought this, fresh impetus of all this creative ideas that he then worked on for the last decade or more. And that was then the foundation of things like the iTunes, iPlayer, the iPhone, and so on and so on, which was then made Apple into the most valuable company in the world. So as he said, it was tough medicine, but it was the best thing that could have happened for his own journey and ultimately for Apple, that he got fired. But at the time, it didn't seem like it. It seemed like a disaster. So again, letting go, he was able to let go of, the disappointment and, the ego getting upset about it, and the sense of public humiliation, all of that, and just be creative again. Go, okay, well, I can just, do what I did 10 years ago, and I can start again. Instead of, getting caught up in all that corporate stuff, which is what starts to happen if you grow into an organization that size. It all becomes very corporatized and very limited. And he's just liberated from that through that experience. So again, letting go, key to his journey. He had another experience, which wasn't shared in the video, but I'll share it, where late 70s, they'd invested a whole lot in the Apple Mac. They had this whole operating system, and then he saw what essentially the pilot for the current computer interface, this kind of Windows type graphical user interface. And he said, we've got to change. We're on the wrong track. And all of his fellow executives said, no, we can't do that because we've already invested millions in this, and it'll kill the company. And his answer was, well, best we kill the company then, and not someone else, because if we don't do it, someone else is going to adopt us, and we're going to be dead in the water. That was his attitude. So again, letting go. He let go of all of that investment and they'd gone down a track for a couple of years on one path, and a sunk cost of millions, which is a small company, you know, is a lot of money. And he went, okay, we've got to do it, because it's the right thing to do. And that graphical user interface and operating system became the foundation of the Macintosh, which then was, you know, a huge success. And they recovered that money many times over by selling, you know, millions of Macs. But all about letting go again. You know, you had to key point. If you had held on, Apple might have failed, and you would never have heard of it. Just one inspired bit of letting go. And then finally, he talks about death. So at the time, you know, a year before this, he'd been diagnosed with cancer, and you know, he just reflects on that experience and says, well, actually, you know, if I live every day as if it's my last, you know, one day you'll surely be right. He read that quote when he was 17. So he tried to live that every day. Say, okay, if this was my last day, would I want to be doing what I'm doing if this was my last day? It's an interesting question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Would I want to be doing today, if this was my final day on this planet, would I choose to do what I'm doing? And if the answer is no, for too many days in a row, he said, well, then I need to change, because I'm not in alignment with my purpose and my joy.
I definitely want to be out of my camera on my last day on this planet.
Yeah. So there you go. You know, that's
Yeah.
what I would, on your last day, what would you like to do? How would you like to go out? And, you know, then you're in alignment. And if not, then it's like, okay, well, you out of alignment. So very interesting guy, you know, because there was a lot of awareness. He at his funeral, he insisted that everyone be given a copy of Paramahansa Yogananda's autobiography of a yogi. That was like his Bible. He read that many times. And so he had, you know, his spiritual principles guiding him through his life. But he was dealing in this, you know, typically ego world of business and corporate, but somehow Apple had a different quality to the average corporate because of Steve Jobs' awareness. He infused the company with that transcendent awareness of like, okay, there is actually something else, and the brand has to stand for that. And that's why people love Apples, because there's something a little bit different and a little bit transcendent about you know, using an Apple instead of a, you know, probably equally good technologically some other brand, Samsung, or in computers, Dell computers. They make good computers, but they don't have that transcendent awareness, which is what he brought into Apple, which is what made it into the most valuable company in the world. But why do people, either of you use Apples?
I've got an iPhone, and
Yeah.
it's an
So why do
XS
you
Max. It's about 6 or 7 years old now. It's lasted that long. It's
Yeah.
brilliant. It's just a brilliant
Yeah,
piece
me
of
too.
machinery. It's
Yeah,
incredible. They're incredible.
They are. Yeah, I've got one.
So, but there's something now. You could probably get the same. I mean, there's Samsungs. There's you know, there's other technology that's, you know, equally incredible. But why the iPhone? Why Apple? That's the question.
Yeah,
And it's because it carries something
love it.
else.
Yeah.
There's something more than just a piece of technology in it.
Bit of awareness.
Yeah. And that is really Steve Jobs' awareness, spiritual awareness, that got infused into the whole company, into its culture, which then manifests in the products that they make. Even though he's now gone, his awareness lives on in every product that Apple sells
All
and
over
in the
the
brand.
world.
Yeah. And so, you know, his journey, his own hero's journey, has changed the world on quite a profound level. So you look at the integral model, that awareness that he had, his individual awareness, his connection to spirit, his understanding of these spiritual principles, is what then infused into the shared values and meanings and culture of the whole organization of Apple. And then that gets extended out into the external world. And now we have a system, we call it the Apple system, that's been developed, right? It's a system of communication that interlocks and that, you know, affects hundreds of millions of people's lives in a positive way, generally.
Yeah.
All coming from this one person's higher awareness that was then acted out in his purpose. He followed his purpose through his life, and so it manifested in form on the external level. And now, it's had a profound impact on the entire world. Most people know about apples. If they haven't used them, they know about them. And it's made an impact on the world. So there's an example. Steve Jobs is a good example of exactly how this works in practice. You follow your own calling, you listen to your higher self, and you allow that to manifest in action in and through you. And then inevitably that's gonna have a profound impact on the world. In his case, he built $1 billion organization. And so, yeah, there's this whole, massive organization and billions of people around the world are affected. In your case, it might just be, well, it might, on a smaller level, you don't have to build $1 billion organization to do this, but you will have an impact in the world. That this awareness that you have is extended in and through your life's work into the benefit other people in ways that you can't even imagine necessarily. Steve Jobs is long dead and gone, and we're talking about him and, using his example to inspire us. He probably wouldn't have envisaged that at all, but, that's the benefit for others. So you just don't know what kind of legacy you might leave if you follow your heart. And so his final message was, stay hungry, stay curious. Stay in this awareness. Don't settle for the complacency of the ego. Keep listening to guidance is what he was saying. Keep listening to that guidance. Keep letting go of the old and being open to the new. That's the message. That's what he was really saying to these graduates. I mean, a brilliant address. Really, he was there delivering a message from the Holy Spirit to all of those graduates, and now to 43 million people have watched that video. So 43 million people have benefited from that, from his awareness and that speech. So yeah, all very inspiring. I mean, it just shows us what's possible. And he was just a college kid. He dropped out of college. What, did he have anything special? No, except his own awareness, his connection to his spirit that guided him. And he was willing to act on it consistently. And, look at what happened. So, he wasn't anything special. We can all do it. Some people think, oh, well, Steve Jobs was just super gifted, or, not really. He just had an awareness, and he allowed that awareness to guide him. He had his own challenges. I mean, it's like that being adopted, from the start, that's not an easy thing necessarily to deal with. And he had relationship challenges, no doubt. But through it all, this awareness is what carried him through. And that awareness is why Apple is the most valuable company in the world. No doubt. It has something different from any other technology company. And that's what gives it the edge.
Yeah.
It's his awareness infused into the culture of Apple that has made the difference. And that is the spirit coming in and found a willing channel in Steve Jobs, and then it manifested in and through his life's work into a corporation, which now spreads that awareness through the world. And that's how you change the world. Okay, so any comments, thoughts, or questions on that? Some inspiring examples there that hopefully inspire you to walk your own journey. I think that's always the thing. It's not, oh, Steve Jobs was so amazing and I could never be like him. It's like, no, I could absolutely be like him in my own way. It's not going to be Steve Jobs's journey. It's going to be my journey, and those principles will play out differently in my life, but the principles are there, and they are enormously powerful, as is evidenced by someone like him in his journey. Okay, so let's go on to today's lesson then, which is related to the quote. I'm not the victim of the world I see. So lesson 31 we're on. I'm not the victim of the world I see. So either one of you read the first paragraph kindly.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Today's idea is the introduction to your declaration of release. Again, the idea should be applied to both the world you see without and the world you see within. In applying the idea, we will use a form of practice which will be used more and more, with changes as indicated. Generally speaking, the form includes two aspects, one in which you apply the idea on a more sustained basis, and the other consisting of frequent applications of the idea throughout the day. So it's just saying that this is our declaration for release.
Hmm.
Yeah, and there's a nice little diagram.
Mm-hmm.
Inner world and the outer world, with all its parties and
Mm-hmm.
distractions and so forth. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's that inner world, me this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Sound,
this
sight,
just making
people.
a point. Yeah, inner world and the outer world are both within, composed of thought, and both without, outside image. So separation, we project that into the outer world, and that world is a manifestation of the inner world.
Mm.
Which is why, this integral model, we keep coming back to it, because it's demonstrating that as within, so without. Your external world is a projection of and reflection of the inner world. So this is cause and this is effect. This then feeds back into this, and it reinforces the thought system from which it came. So if you're thinking right-mindedly, then miracles reinforce that correct thought system. And if you're thinking incorrectly about it, then the world reinforces the false thought system of the ego. So the question is, what do you choose for it to be? And it's a choice and it's a decision that you can make internally without any reference to the external world. You have this power to change your mind, and then you change your perception of everything. And everything has a different purpose then and a different meaning. So inside out rather than outside in. Instead of your perceptions being governed by the external world, your perceptions are governed by your decision about who you want to be. So the locus of control is internal rather than external. And that shift is what we're trying to accomplish with the course. The training is all designed to shift you into this awareness and really connecting with your true self. And then perceiving from that true self, perceiving the world correctly. So you reinterpret everything in the external. Although the images were made of hatred, they can be reinterpreted from the perspective of love. When we get confused and we get shut down, the images seem to crowd in upon us, and they tell us that we are weak and sick and vulnerable, and that this thought system of the ego is reality. That's what the images are designed to do. But you don't have to believe that. You can reinterpret it and make a different choice. Okay, so this is pretty much a practice lesson. Let's just read, and we'll go into the practice. So just read this slide. I'm doing this to myself.
I'm doing this to myself. Everything that happened came out of my mind, no matter how independent from me it may have seemed. The images weren't real, and therefore I don't need to react to them emotionally. That's hard sometimes.
Mm. Yeah.
Especially when you can't work out why, what you did, what thoughts you were thinking to create it. That's when it's tricky.
Yeah.
Well, I think I can see it in my situation with Dave. There's a lot of fear around that in the future. So I guess
Mm.
that's where I'm creating it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, yeah,
It's
that's
coming
what
out
the
of your subconscious. The tricky thing is with this, it's not conscious always. No one says, "Oh, yes, I want sickness, or I want pain, or I want suffering," consciously, do they? But it's all
no.
subconscious.
Mm.
So this is an exploration of the subconscious mind. We've got to go into that psyche, the depths of our psyche, and we've got to bring up the subconscious belief system. And what does that more effectively than anything else is the projections. You see the genius of the Holy Spirit. The projections of your subconscious mind are shown to you in the mirror that the world presents. So now you can see them. They're out there. You can see them very clearly. They're not hidden away anymore. Do you see that?
Yeah.
The world is the projection of your subconscious belief system. And if you understand that, that's enormously helpful. Okay, I don't have to go digging into the depths of my psyche anymore, because the world is showing me my beliefs. And then those beliefs also helpfully come up. I experience them. The thoughts and emotions arise, and I experience them very presently in my awareness. So now it's come up out of the depths of my subconscious, where I wasn't even aware these things were resident, and now I'm experiencing them through the projection that the ego's created, this mechanism of perception projection that the ego has
So,
invented to enslave us, is now the Holy Spirit reinterprets it to free us.
so still on the level of form, though, the behavior will still probably continue, but you just see it in a different way.
Maybe or maybe not. You don't know.
Right.
Don't prejudge it. It just,
Oh,
just do whatever you need to do in the moment. That's the lesson, being purely present. My job
Because
right now
sometimes,
is to let go of that thought and emotion if it's negative.
because sometimes when you change that perception, it literally does change the visual that you're seeing and you've been dealing with, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because your reality is perceptual. I mean, they even say it in quantum mechanics. There is no reality in the absence of observation. That is the Copenhagen interpretation, which is the most accepted interpretation of quantum mechanics. But interesting that science has interpretation now. It's not fact, it's interpretation, isn't it? That's the interpretation of what quantum mechanics is saying from one perspective. Okay, so reality is perceptual. There's no objective reality out there. Reality is completely tied up with the observer that's experiencing that reality. You cannot divorce them. That's what quantum mechanics says. The observer influences the outcome of the experiment time and time again. The observer's intention influences the outcome of the experiments. That's freaky for the scientists. Oh, okay, so there's no objective reality then. The observer and the observed thing are completely connected. Well, that's just saying what the mystics and spiritual teachers have been saying for thousands of years. It's completely connected. You can't divorce it. The idea that this is somehow, this external world is divorced from the internal world is ridiculous. And science, quantum mechanics disproves that. There is an integral link. The subjective self, the observer, and the observed thing are actually two sides of the same coin. What the Course says then is that all of that takes it to another level. It says that whole process is illusory. The false self projects itself out into a false world, then perceives it, creates this whole imaginary perception, projection, perception reality, which is the illusion. But outside of that lies your true awareness. It's completely outside of that whole system. But what quantum mechanics is really pointing us to is the truth. Just the same truth that every every spiritual teacher has found for themselves and taught over thousands of years. It's just saying the same thing, which is scientists struggle with. As I mentioned, this guy called Heisenberg, or was it Schrodinger? I never forget which one, but one of them said he dedicated his life to it. He's one of the pioneers, and he just said at the end of his life, I don't like it. I hate it, and I wish I never had anything to do with it, because it started to play with his model of reality and challenged his concept of, well, what's real and who am I? You see, that's what quantum mechanics does. Even Einstein said, I can't believe that God plays dice with the universe, because he was trying to reconcile God, perfect oneness, in other words, some transcendent awareness, with this seemingly random world that quantum mechanics was saying existed, and he couldn't. Why? Because they don't reconcile. Yeah, God doesn't play dice with the universe because God didn't create it. That's the whole point. So you see how even you start going into quantum mechanics and perception and stuff and science, it reveals these same spiritual truths if you can see it correctly. In other words, all paths lead back to source, whichever way you go. You could take a scientific path, you could take a purely spiritual path, end up in the same place, because there's only one truth. Okay, let's read the rest of that. This means that I'm dreaming an outer attack on me.
This means that I'm dreaming that outer attack on me as a reflection of my own unforgiveness against myself. This means that I am dreaming that outer attack on me as a reflection of my own unforgiveness against myself. If I can accept this message, I can cease to react to the attacking dream figures, and I can forgive the brothers who seem to be carrying out those attacks.
And then I caused the dream of my life. In doing so, I caused nothing. My own idea of separation and being a separate self caused the dream of my life. That's what this is saying. But the awakening from that is, in doing this, I cause nothing. The dream of my life is nothing. It's just a dream. So I'm actually free of it. Okay. Any thoughts on that or questions? It's quite deep, isn't it? I mean, this stuff is incredible.
It's blown my brain a bit. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'll go
your
around in
mind.
circles with it.
Yeah. Yeah, but if I cause the whole thing,
Yeah,
then I can also uncause it. I can realize that, that is all false causation. That's the liberation. If you accept total responsibility for the dream of your life, no matter what's showing up in the dream, then you have the ability to let it go, don't you? Well, I caused it. Stop causing it. But if you're the victim of the world, then you're stuck, you're trapped. Because it's not happening. You're not doing it. Someone else is doing it to you, and then there's no way out.
Yeah, and
That's why
it
taking a
can keep happening.
responsibility,
Yeah,
100% responsibility without exception is essential. You have to, otherwise you can't free yourself. As hard as that is to do, the tendency of the ego is it wants to blame someone else. Well, I didn't do it. Not my fault.
yeah,
Someone else did it. Someone else is to blame. Why? Because we feel guilty, and the ego says, well, to get rid of that guilt, you got to project it onto someone else or something else. Anything will do. A person, a group of people, an institution, the weather, whatever.
War? What about war? I mean, that's a big biggie.
Anything external, I blame. Oh, well, I'm unhappy. Well, my life is ruined because of that external circumstance. No, even if you're in the war and your normal life has been disrupted, that is actually part of your awakening from the journey, from the dream of your life. So it's actually helpful. That's why we can say all things are truly helpful. Okay, so war, death, disaster, mayhem, chaos, whatever the ego comes up with, it's helpful in your awakening journey because it helps you to free your mind from this disastrous dream of the ego and
So
of
the
your
ones
life.
that have been, the ones that were killed are really in a fortunate position, or, well, of course, they may have to come back.
Well, if they didn't learn their lessons, then yeah, they'll come back, but they're not suffering, in much less suffering when you're out of the body.
Mm,
It's none of that, physical trauma and pain and sickness and death exists in the afterlife. So actually,
yeah,
they're fine. So why why are we sad? I mean,
I
those,
don't know.
think of
Mad.
the concentration camp experience. So everyone's like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
that's so terrible. Those ones who got gassed, it's so terrible. They were the lucky ones, man.
Mm, yeah.
That's it. Just they were brought in. They didn't have to suffer. It was like they got gassed over, and they're free. Okay, they're probably going to have another life, but they didn't have to, live for years in this living hell.
Mm.
But we don't see it that way. When you're in the ego, you don't see it that way, do you?
Oh,
No, no.
You perceive that this was terrible and was. I remember sending out a quote once, which is quite profound, saying, um, if you can't forgive Hitler, you can't forgive anyone.
Mm, that's profound.
It is
Yeah.
quite profound. And I sent it out because it's like, I think it makes a profound point. And then I went to my squash club that evening. There's a Jewish guy who sort of ran the club. And he said, Jono, he said, no, normally I love your stuff. He was on my mailing list. Normally I love your stuff, but that stuff don't send me.
He's pushed his buttons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because what I'm pushing into then is that whole, Jewish psyche of we're the victim and this is terrible and the Holocaust
yeah.
and you can't forgive, Hitler or the Germans because it's an unforgivable sin and this was terrible and horrific and we keep reminding ourselves of the horror of it and they have museums to the Holocaust and on it goes. And that in that single sentence, you're saying, well, you got to let it go or you can't forgive anyone because then you've made the world real and then if that's real then all the horrors of the world are real, aren't they? All the sickness and the misery and the pain and the suffering and the death is real if that is real and you can't forgive Hitler. You have to deny the reality of all of it. Okay, so the Holocaust wasn't real, Hitler wasn't real, there's no death. No, those were dream characters in an illusion that seemed to be there and then they weren't.
Mm.
But they were going to die anyway. Everyone, the whole thing is illusory. Whether they died in the concentration camp or they died 30 years later of old age, does it really matter?
Well, there was
If
Anne
it's just,
Frank, wasn't she? Remember Anne Frank? She was only 16 or 17 or something, wasn't she?
oh. So from the ego's perspective, this is a tragedy. Oh, she was a young life and, she
Mm.
died. And it was awful. Was it? She had an experience. She seemed to learn quite a lot in that life, and then
She
she
had a bit of,
exited.
she had the spirit in her. There's no doubt
Hmm.
about that.
Yeah, and she
Yeah.
brought it into the world quite profoundly in her 17 years, and then she exited. Okay. Why is that a
Mm.
tragedy? That was her life. She'd probably come back, she'd have another body, another life, and have another go. What's to be sad about?
Mm.
There's
Well,
not, there's no reason to grieve. It's just this is the process of
radical.
everyone's awakening, and life and death are just part of that. So why are we grieving and making ourselves suffer over this
Mm.
inevitable process? Everything's going to die anyway. So does it really matter when it dies? Not really. If it's just a dream.
Mm.
So this is the kind of thinking that he's trying to teach us so that we're free of this.
Hard. Yeah, it
Of
is
course, there are
hard.
going to be people, people might be offended listening to this, going, "Oh my God, that's blasphemy. You've just denied the suffering of the Holocaust." And if anyone's watching this, let's say, but does that serve you? Does that belief continue to serve you? To believe that you're a victim, to believe in all the suffering and the pain, and keep reminding yourself of that. How does that serve you? It
It
only
doesn't.
serves to identify you as that, as part of that group. in this case, the Jewish race, religion, and so on. Now you become identified with that as the collective ego. That's what it serves to do. Well, if you could let that go, maybe you could just transcend all that. Realize you're not a Jew or a Christian or a Muslim or any of that. You are pure formless awareness of perfect love. You're beyond all of those categories and all of that, false identity that the ego has created.
So therefore, all of that suffering and wars and everything is just there to awaken us all, I guess.
Correctly interpreted. That's why you can say, everything is gently planned for your highest good. The Course says that. And then you go, well, whoa, there's all this horror going on. How could you say the Holocaust is for the highest good? But correctly interpreted, it is, because it shows us very clearly the thought system of the ego and helps us make a choice. And there were people like Viktor Frankl and Frank and many others who made a profound choice to let that go through facing all of that horror. So I can't believe this thought system anymore. I'm willing to let it go and find another way. And then they bring that out of the ashes of that horrific experience. Something like Man's Search for Meaning comes, which is, an inspiring book that helps us connect with our true meaning and purpose. So, there's the purpose. There's the reason for it.
Oh, yeah, no, I do see that. Yes, it is. It's difficult to get your head around it. But, there's an inkling in me saying, yeah, there is something definitely not right. Yeah.
And look at what's happened subsequently. We haven't had a world war since because the horror of it and the atomic bomb was so intense, and humanity did it 20 years before, another world war. Great. And it's like, okay, guys, are you ever going to wake up? This is not smart. This is not clever. This is hell that you're creating. You need to find another way.
Yeah.
And so those experiences for the collective were part of the awakening of humanity very soon afterwards in the 60s. So 15 years after the war ended comes this whole flowering of human consciousness, of like an awakening into truth and an opening into these high. Would that have happened without the war? It's questionable. Maybe it wouldn't have. So you can see it's all part of a divine plan for our awakening, which in our limited human selves we can't understand.
No, yeah.
You can only
but there is an
start
inkling
to understand it if you can let go of your own judgment of it and your own misperceptions and go, okay, well, I'm willing to just let those go and open myself to, okay, the idea that everything is always happening for the highest good of everyone, especially when it's extremely painful and seemingly completely disastrous. That's especially when that principle applies, because it's helping you to overcome the ego and awaken from it. And sometimes the lessons need to be painful because we're so attached to our ego's identity and world. The only way out of that is sometimes the pain is to get so intense that it cracks open the shell of the ego.
Well, it makes my situation very pitiful. Really, I'm getting upset over nothing when you hear of the
exactly
Holocaust and all the rest of it.
What some of these people had to go through. I mean, your experiences are nothing like that. It's like
none at all. No.
If like, let's take Viktor Frankl's experience. That's a kind of 10 out of 10. No, let's say that's a 9 out of 10. Yeshua's was a 10 out of 10. His crucifixion, that's like, okay, they just doing the worst possible thing they can do to the body, right?
Yeah.
You get flogged, you get beaten, you get publicly humiliated, you get a crown of thorns put on your head, you're forced to carry your cross, die in your own body fluids. That's kind of about as worst, as awful as the religion did. So that's a 10 out of 10 on the scale of the ego's, insanity. And yet he taught through that experience that none of it mattered. That was his gift to the world. It didn't matter. That all of that hatred and attack And the ego's whole thought system that manifested in the crucifixion was actually of no consequence. That he could still forgive his persecutors, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And actually it was of no consequence because he couldn't even die. He resurrects. They couldn't kill him. The ego gave him everything it could possibly give, right? The worst possible, like, let's throw it all at you. And yet I'm invulnerable. I'm eternal. And that's, that's why it's such a profound message. So that's the 10 out of 10. And out of that came, one of the most profound messages to humanity. The message of the crucifixion and the resurrection enacted was showing us that we can overcome even the worst that the ego can throw at us. So, your experience is nothing like that. Or Viktor Frankl,
No.
let's say 9 out
No,
of 10.
no.
Okay, so your family's been murdered. His wife, his entire biological family murdered. He's not sure of that because I think they went to other camps. So there's this uncertainty, are they alive or not? But they were ultimately murdered. He probably had to accept that. And then, he's living in these, really atrocious conditions, very little food. He's been manhandled by the guards. At any point, you could be shot. You just never knew when your last day would arrive because it was like, well, some guard could just decide to shoot me for fun, and that's it. That would be the end. So somehow living with all of that and being able to transcend it and find the spirit within that and find the meaning of it. I mean, that's
Well,
hardcore.
that's mind-blowing, yeah. Mind-blowing, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, if they could do it, why can't you? That's the question.
Well, yes, yeah. Obviously, you can't compare. Yes, of course.
But your
But
challenges
again,
are,
well,
that's a 9 or
minuscule.
a 10. Your challenges are a 2 or a 3.
-1. -1.
So then you're like, okay, well, maybe I should just stop complaining and just let go. Do what they did.
Yeah.
Just, I've got to apply the same logic and let go. In some ways, because it's so horrendous, it's almost easier to let it go. It's interesting. Kind of first logic, because it's so awful. There's no way in that, horror of that experience that you can believe that this is okay. It's just like, this is clearly hell. So because it's so extreme, you have to let it go and find something deeper in your mind, which is, the advantage then sometimes of extreme situations. They offer the opportunity for a breakthrough, which is again why they happen. So it's all perfect. It's all part of, the learning of individuals and of humanity in this awakening journey. And we just have to, learn to accept that. Actually,
it's very radical, though, isn't it? It's very radical for your average ego.
Yeah, I mean, the ego won't.
But if you're willing, which I certainly am willing, I'd like to get out of the.
But how else are you going to get out?
Well,
is any other approach going to work? If this is how the ego works and it's got you well entrenched in its system, lifetime after lifetime, and all this stuff seemingly going on, it's trying to convince you that it's all real. How else are you going to get out of that system?
We just go around in circles.
It's releasing the triggers, though, isn't it? It's whatever your triggers are. It can feel like the worst thing that happens to anybody else, really. If you're stuck in a cycle of being triggered by your triggers, it's until you've dealt with them, it's painful. So
but you've got to say, okay, enough's enough. When is enough enough? When have I suffered enough?
Yeah, that's it.
When am I willing to change my mind fundamentally and go for this? Be radical. Radical really just means I'm going to the root. It comes from the Latin word radix, which means root. I'm going to the root of the cause of my suffering. Well, what other approach is really going to work? If you don't go to the root of it, how are you going to get rid of it?
Yeah.
Well, you go around.
You know how weeds work.
Magic. You use magic.
If you leave the weed, implant it in the soil, you just take off the top. It's going to grow back, isn't it? Obvious. Any gardener will tell you that you have to uproot it. So we got to do the same thing. You've got to uproot the tap root, and it's a deep tap root going well deep into the soil of your psyche. You've got to uproot that and pull it out. And that's what this process does. Yeah. And when the triggers come, that's a sign that the root is still there. Okay,
Yeah.
well, you got tricked, you
Yeah.
reacted. That's the you know, the manifest result, the weed, you know, whatever it is, blackjacks, or you don't have blackjacks here, but you know, the blackberries and all these that's the fruit of it that you can see manifest. It means there must be a root system. Okay, well, that means I've got to do some more digging, and I've got to undo it at the root by letting it
Yeah.
go. As I experience those thoughts and emotions, I deny them. I let them go. I release them. And so I'm cleaning it out, and I'm uprooting the ego, and ultimately I'll be free of it. And the more you get triggered, i.e. the more difficult the world is, the better in some ways, because it just gets it over with. Okay, just bring it on. Let's get this cleaning out process over with.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's, you know, the warrior spirit. When you say you're a warrior, it means, okay, just like Neo says to Smith on the platform, come. You know, he beckons him. He says, come, bring it on. Because I'm not scared anymore. Bring it on. Like whatever I need to experience to awaken, bring it on. I'm not scared anymore.
Mm.
And then you start identifying with your true self and awakening to that power that is invulnerable and invincible within you. You know you cannot be destroyed. No matter what the ego does, you cannot be destroyed.
Mm.
So why are you scared?
It's just inbuilt, isn't it? It's kind of inbuilt, so it's in the root. As you say, you've got to root it out.
Root of a false idea that you are a separate self that has separate interests that can now be, you know, affected and damaged.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. That's what we've got to undo. One's got to go. Okay, so let's do a meditation on this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just read this last one. I do not call for
Oh, yeah.
martyrs, but for
Yeah.
teachers.
I do not call for martyrs, but for teachers. A martyr is a person who voluntarily suffers. A victim. Oh, that's me. Yeah. Do
It's not
not.
really just who you think you are. You know?
Yeah.
So
Yes. Certainly
and
this
you can
morning.
see it and say, okay, I'm going to stop the victim identity. I'm going to stop
Mm-hmm.
being a martyr.
Yeah.
I'm going to transcend this.
Yeah. Not being a
So then read
victim.
yeah.
Yeah. Not being a victim, in other words, means feeling emotionally free of the tyranny of outer circumstances. The point here seems to be that while others can verbally attack you or verbally assault you, they cannot actually cause you to feel annoyed, bothered, or troubled, or enforce a sense of persecution. You therefore cannot be persecuted, and when you realize this, no assault will be able to arouse any negative emotion in you whatsoever.
This is the message of the crucifixion. Yeah. It's the final message Yeshua taught through his life. You cannot be persecuted, no matter what the ego does on the level of form. You know, the most horrendous thing, it's done all that, you know, crazy, attacking, hurtful, trying to kill him, killing him, you know, in the most brutal way. And yet, the message is you cannot be persecuted. Your true self, which is beyond the body and the ego, cannot be persecuted. And you live eternally in that self. The resurrection demonstrated that. And that no assault will be able to arouse any negative emotion in you whatsoever. Well, we all have some way to go to that level, don't we?
Yes, absolutely.
As we
Yeah,
get,
that's
we
the truth.
react
Yeah,
to the apparent assaults of life, whatever that may be, you know, whether it's
is
someone directly attacking you physically, or it's a verbal insult, or it's just a situation that you feel as a threat,
yeah,
whatever it is, it's, you know, it's the
yeah,
thought system attack that you're facing.
yes. Mm. Yeah.
And so this is saying to us, you know, there's three ways of emulating Jesus or Yeshua as our role model. We must believe with him that there's no justification for anger. Okay? None at all. Never a justification for anger.
Or fear. Yeah, because in my case, it was fear, not anger.
Well, it's, yeah, they're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Fear and anger go hand in hand. So there's no justification for any negative thought or emotion. Anger, fear, guilt, sin, attack thoughts, jealousy, rage, depression, sadness, and on it goes. There's no justification for any of that because the idea behind them all is not true. Because it's false. Then none of those thoughts and emotions are justified. And he's asking us to believe that with him, to raise ourselves up into this higher awareness, beyond the thoughts of separation, into pure formless awareness of perfect love, which knows that the idea of separation and all of its delusions is simply not justified, because it's not real. You see, it comes down to the reality. Do you accept the reality of separation or not? And that's a decision. It's a choice you can make. The second way is perception. Perceive ourselves as unable to be persecuted, just like he did, in the extreme situation of being persecuted. You know, his body's been crucified. He's dying on the cross, and he still says, I don't perceive myself as persecuted. Because he's transcended that whole, level. He realized that it was all just a dream. His body dying, the persecution, the whole drama that unfolded in the crucifixion was just a dream. That was his final lesson, which he learned, and now he's teaching it to us through his teaching. And then finally, teaching is to teach our own perfect community, just like he taught his. So I'm not affected by any attack whatsoever. I'm immune from all of this. Okay, so very simple lesson, but very profound one. I'm not the victim of the world I see. It's a massive turnaround.
It is. It's a very good one for me personally today. Very good one. Yeah.
And you just see how appropriate it is for your life experience.
Again, yes.
Because I'm tempted to believe that I am the victim of the world I see.
Yeah.
Circumstances. But this states that turns it around. It says, no, I'm not the victim of the world I see because I invented it. I made it up. That's going to be another lesson. But how can I be the victim if I created it? This is where the responsibility comes in. I created it, so I can't be the victim of it. It's just an illusion. It seems to be that I'm the victim of it, but I can change my mind. There's nothing stopping me from changing my mind. I don't have to believe that I'm a victim, irrespective of the circumstances that I've miscreated. So we have residual self-image in the circumstances that we face. And that seemingly makes us a victim of the world. But that's just a projection of a residual projection of the old identity, the victim identity, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we've got to overcome that and go, no, the projection of my old victim identity is not true, because that old identity is not true. I'm not a victim of the world I see. So it goes to the core of the ego's delusion and undoes it. If I'm not the victim of the world I see, then what am I? It opens your mind for that question, doesn't it? And well, maybe I'm a transcendent awareness that's beyond the world, that's invulnerable to anything that I see in the world and I perceive in the world. I'm invulnerable. I'm perfectly immune from from any of these projections, because myself is not a victim. Myself is pure formless awareness of perfect love that is way beyond any idea of being a victim. And so again, it comes down to the self-concept. What do you believe about yourself? Always comes down to that, doesn't it? Who am I? What do I believe about myself? Do I believe I'm a victim? In which case, just to refresh your memory, I have to believe in the ego's whole thought system, because I can only be a victim if I believe in separation and the individual self that I think I've made, and the guilt and the sin and the fear and the attack. Projected guilt is attack, accusation, blame, and attack, and the cycle of accusation, blame, and counterattack. Well, I have to believe in all of that if I believe I'm a victim. So you have to believe in an entire thought system, an alternate reality, to be a victim. You see why it's so massive? Your self-concept incorporates and encapsulates the entire thought system behind it. That's why we go to the level of looking at your self-concept in the naming of game exercise. Because that false self-concept is what entrenches the entire thought system of the ego in your mind, and therefore in your experience of the world. So you've got to start at that point and say, this is what needs to be questioned and undone. And your journey of doing that is your journey of awakening, is your higher purpose. That's the only meaning and purpose of your life. To realize that you're not a victim of the world you see. You are love itself, pure formless awareness of perfect love itself, and nothing else. In which awareness there is no victim identity. The victim identity only comes with an awareness of separation. Do you see that? Yeah. So very good.
Very good. Yeah. Yay.
Yay!
Yay.
Let's do the meditation then, shall we?
Yeah. That's good. Could we do the text later on? Because I've got dogs and family that I've got to sort of interact with.
Yeah.
Well, it depends. I mean, is John coming today? Is John coming?
I don't know, actually. He might. Could message
Okay.
him and
Oh
ask
well.
him.
Yeah. Oh well. Play it by ear. Yeah.
I'll ask him if he wants to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Meditation. Yeah.
meditation. Yeah. So just making yourself comfortable, sitting with your feet shoulder width apart, your back straight, cup your hands in your lap, close your eyes, and start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. So breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, and the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Pausing at the top of the inhale, smile, scan your mind, so noticing any thoughts, emotions going on, particularly anything that feels negative, limiting, contracted, constricting. Consider the thoughts for a moment, and then just let it go. Let the next one come. Just watch them come and go as dispassionately, as detached away as possible. Do not dwell on any one in particular. Try to let the stream move on evenly and calmly, without any special investment on your part. So just sit quietly, watch your thoughts, and repeat today's idea to yourself as often as you want to, but with no sense of hurry. Say, I am not the victim of the world I see in these thoughts. Then exhale on the truth of that. Use the exhale to help you to release any negative thought and emotion. Just blowing it out with the breeze of your breath to the nothingness that it really is. It's going, gone. Find a sense of peace and stillness. And then just carry on. Just breathing in and out through your nose. Observe the breath that anchor you into a very calm, quiet state of awareness. And just sit and quietly watch your thoughts. Every now and then repeat today's idea. I am not the victim of the world I see, because I'm doing this to myself. So I can't be the victim of the world I see if I'm doing this to myself. Remind yourself that you're making a declaration of independence in the name of your own freedom. And in your freedom lies the freedom of the world. The idea for today is also particularly useful to use in response to any temptation. So when you notice any of these temptations to go down the ego's rabbit hole, it's a declaration that you will not yield to it and put yourself in bondage. The ego wants you to react to something, get upset, get angry, be fearful. That's a temptation. So again, just watch your mind, watch any thoughts as they arise and emotions related to them. Observe any body sensations that occur as well. And if it's not pleasant, if it's a temptation, in other words, just say quietly and firmly to yourself that I am not the victim of this situation. I'm not the victim of the world I perceive. I'm not the victim of the world I see. And just dwell in that awareness. Just observing the breath, Sinking inwards to the truth, your higher awareness. When thoughts come up, you just observe them again, in a very detached way. Remind yourself that I'm not the victim of the world I see. I'm not the victim of the world I see. And then sink back inwards to the truth of who you really are. Any thoughts arise, again, just apply today's lesson to them. I'm not the victim of the world I see or perceive in this situation. Breathe in the light of this truth, the true identity that is beyond the victim. Breathe it into every pore, every cell, every muscle, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being is in the light. And then exhale and let it go. Just the breeze of your breath, blowing it out to the nothingness that it really is. It's going, gone. And just sinking inwards to this deep peace and stillness. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. And just breathe, relax, and still. So just gently coming back from this deep connected state of awareness into an awareness of your body and the breath and the senses and the world. And on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises and the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Pausing at the top of the inhale. Smile. You breathe in fully, observe your mind again, scan your mind. Any thoughts, any emotions, related body sensations, notice them. Mind yourself. No matter what you think, no matter what you feel and perceive, I am not the victim of the situation, person, place, circumstance, or event, because I am not the victim of the world I perceive. Exhale on the truth of that. Notice on the count of 2 how the air flows out, the chest and the stomach suck back in. The energy subsides back down. One channel of your body coming to rest in the lower stomach, your groin. Feel the weight of your body pressing down into the chair, your feet touching the ground. Notice what you're feeling, touching with your hands. Maybe there's a subtle flow of air on your skin. Notice that. Breathe that air in. Notice the air in your nostrils. Subtle taste perhaps in your mouth. Smell in your nose. Notice that. Notice what you're hearing in the surrounding environment. Just noticing all these things from this very still, calm, and surrendered state of mind, without illusions, in which only the truth is true. Anchor that state in, set the intention to stay here, state beyond the victim identity. So it may be helpful to remind yourself of this frequently through the day, reminding yourself that I'm not a victim of the world I see is a declaration of your independence in the name of your own freedom. And in your freedom lies the freedom of the whole world. Use today's idea in response to any form of temptation to believe in the ego's thought system. So any fear, anger, attack, hatred, jealousy, even a minor irritation is a temptation. So it's a declaration that you'll not yield to it and put yourself in bondage. Okay. So it is said, so it is done. And now on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So just take a moment to look around. Just noticing whatever's going on, apply the idea in the external form. So look about you slowly and just repeat the idea a few times. I'm not the victim of the world I see. Just randomly looking around, whatever happens to be there. Apply the idea to I'm not the victim of the world I see. Say that to yourself 3 or 4 times. Feel what that feels like. Feel the sense of freedom. Close your eyes once more. Say, I'm not the victim of the world I perceive. connect with that feeling, open your eyes again, and notice that whether your eyes are closed or open, it's actually the same feeling. Say again, I'm not the victim of the world I see. And use the idea to keep you in this awakened state beyond the victim identity of the ego lies your true self. So use the idea frequently today to affirm that, and in the face of any temptation to believe otherwise. And you can apply the lesson by just reminding yourself of this, or you can listen to a breath break, short breath break that I sent you to top you up and reconnect you with this presence. So that brings us to the end of the meditation, end of this afternoon session. So thank you, Elaine, for that.
Yes, thank you.
So yeah, would you like to do the text? I'm free tonight, so I could do the text from, say, 7:30.
Yeah.
That work?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Okay. 7:30.
Yeah.
So that's 3 hours. See you in 3 hours. I'll message the group, and I'll message John to
Yeah.
tell
Yeah.
us. Maybe he'll join us. Maybe someone else will join us. So
Yeah. That's good.
okay, I'll see you then.
See you then. Thanks, Jono.
All right.
Bye. Bye.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye for now. So that's a wrap for this session. Thank you to Lynn and Elaine for joining. If you enjoyed this, then you can take another step by signing up to subscribe to the channel to receive notifications from YouTube whenever I go live, which is 6 days a week. You can also join us in the next Art of Letting Go Masterclass, in which I talk about this program, which is ongoing. It's an annual program to really get into A Course in Miracles and study these deep teachings in a quite a thorough way, as you've seen in the session. So we do this every day. So you're welcome to join us for that masterclass next Sunday. Go to vaolg.com to sign up to that, and you'll also get a 3-week free trial of the program when you do that. Finally, if you enjoyed the daily quote and the lesson, and I mentioned the breath break or meditation short just now, that you get to help you practice it, you can receive that via Telegram app by going to lifepool.com and subscribing to that. And I'll add you to the Telegram group, and you'll receive all of that again free of charge. So yeah, look forward to seeing you on the inside soon. Thanks for watching, listening, and namaste. Which means the true self in me acknowledges and honors that same true loving self in you. Wishing you